You're very welcome. My name is Michael Ryan, and I invite you to take a seat, get comfortable. Maybe you're sitting on the floor on your yoga mat. If so, please use a prop or something to support your hips, a cushion, a book. And equally, if you wish, sit in a chair. And if you're sitting in a chair, sit slightly forward so you're supporting your own back, that the chair is not doing that for you. And then close your eyes. So as you close your eyes, let the attention move to your breath. Just begin to notice your breath. And as you become aware of the breath, breathing through the nose if that's possible, can you also just notice how you're doing? What's going on for you? What's happening? What's moving through you? What are the thoughts or feelings that are happening in this moment or that have been happening over the last while? What's your general demeanor like? Just to be aware of and to acknowledge this inner space. So much of our practice is a call to explore the inner realm, the inner landscape. That so much of our lives is spent dealing with the outer world. Sometimes we neglect this inner space. We lose contact with it. So the invitation here as you sit is just to notice, to tune in. And some moments this can be a very easy experience, and other moments it can be a very uncomfortable experience. There can be a lot of resistance to us just coming into that quietness, into that inner space, stopping in a sense. But this is the path that we take to begin to create a deeper sense of ease in our systems. So even if you're noticing discomfort as you sit here, or uncomfortable feelings or thoughts, sensations in the body, is it possible, just for the next few moments, as you are aware of these, to almost name them to yourself? So just internally you can go, okay, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling sore in my body. Whatever it is that's there for you, can you quietly name it to yourself? And this process of naming is a way in which we begin to create a little bit of distance or objectivity with the experience that are arising for us. That all those feelings and sensations that are moving through us, be them happy, be them sad, be them comfortable, be them uncomfortable, are doing exactly that. They're simply moving through us. None of them are solid or fixed. None of them are who we are. They're like the clouds in the sky. They eventually pass by. And when the clouds roll in, it's very difficult to see the sun, or even to remember that the sun might be there. And yet, each time the clouds disappear, the sun is always there. So I invite you to stay here for the next moments. And whatever else might be going on, whatever else you might be aware of, can you stay gently connected to your breath, gently aware of your breath? And I'm going to ask you to inhale for a count of 5 and exhale for a count of 5. And if you find that is too long, choose a shorter number. Inhale for 4 or inhale for 3. But I want the inhalation and the exhalation to be slow and uniformed. So it's as if there's no gap or break in the breath. There's just this slow, steady pulse to the breath. And you're listening to it, you're observing it, and you're creating this uniformity as you do that. So let's just stay with the breath. And again, whatever else might be there for you, you just let it be there. We won't turn away from it, we won't get too involved in it. We'll let it be there, and we stay gently connected to the breath, gently aware of our breath. Stay close to your breath. Stay with your breath. Stay with it. Slow, long, deep inhalation and exhalation. And then after the next exhalation, let the breath come back to its natural rhythm. And then slowly opening the eyes. So of course, particularly at the beginning of a practice, it's important to acknowledge that sitting still and quietening the system is uncomfortable. Usually for most of us it's difficult. That we get kind of used to, or we create habits in terms of what's happening inside of us, the kind of the level of noise or the frequency of noise that's happening inside of us. And most of us just get used to moving around, and that becomes our default, and we're kind of comfortable doing that. So when we begin to stop and slow down and tune into the breath, in one sense, we're beginning to swim against the current. And we're we're exploring the possibility of finding a quieter current, a more at ease experience within ourselves. And invariably we will meet resistance initially to that, or at moments through those practices. So let's transition onto our hands and our knees. We'll begin to move a little. And the movement is a kind of a beautiful bridge between an experience of just moving around in a way that kind of can be distracted for us, and this idea of then accessing stillness. So it's a play between the two of them to ease us into greater ease. Okay, so we're going to come on to hands and knees. And here on the hands and knees, you just begin to move really simply and easily, letting the hips sway. Breathing into the sides of the ribs, moving a little fluidly through the shoulders. And just feel free to be a little creative in your movement. There's no real right or wrong, but I encourage you just to move really simply and easily. It's a way of just exploring and feeling the body. And, of course, we're, moving in our bodies the whole time. We have a relationship to our bodies. We think of our bodies as us. My body is who I am, and yet quite often there's a deeper possibility of relationship available, and this type of practice is a way of exploring that. That our bodies can really help us in living in a way that feels more at ease or richer, even if it's a case of meeting discomfort, meeting pain in our bodies. There can always be an opportunity of using that as a way, in a sense, of waking up a little bit more, or understanding a little bit more, or dropping into a deeper sense of knowing. Okay, I want you to come down onto your forearms. We'll interlace the fingers, we'll keep the elbows underneath the shoulders, and we're still moving in the similar way, just very simple. Hips are going to sway. Long, deep breath into the ribs. Notice the sides of the ribs, even a sense of the armpits, just expanding, becoming buoyant as you're inhaling, and softening and releasing as you're exhaling. For many of us, the tendency will be to drop or sink the head down toward the floor. I encourage you to lift the neck so you're looking down at the wrists or the hands. Move a little through your shoulders. The shoulders and the hips are those two areas that tend to get kind of calcified as we get a little older. They get so rigid, and because they're designed to actually do the opposite, to stay fluid, to stay strong and open, they can really be an issue for us. So just move around and feel and notice, and part of the experience of moving is a fluidness and ease, and then part of it might be kinks or tightnesses that you feel into. And this is all perfect, it's just part of being human, and it's all fluid in the sense that we can shift. Our bodies, as with our lives, are designed for us to experience lightness or a sense of ease or joy. That's all on the table for us if we're willing to explore how we might access it, how we might move deeper into those experiences. Okay, lower back relaxes, belly relaxes. You've got an arch in the lower back, sense of the bum sticking up. Without moving anything, push your legs away from each other, and then relax, and then press them apart again, and relax. And just pulse that engagement, pressing the legs, the knees away from each other, and releasing. Just continue. So you feel that engagement in the pelvis and the hips, that widening and that releasing, widening and releasing. Okay, and let that soften now. Walk your elbows in together. Walk your forearms right in together. And as the elbows come in, notice what happens around the back and the shoulder blades. That automatic broadening of that upper back space. Just a little bit deeper here. Press the forearms down and breathe into that space. So really get a sense of what happens as you swell the ribs, as you expand through the rib cage. this idea of fullness. So when we expand, when we move into a fuller position, you think about it in terms of what you're doing. You take a deep breath, the softer tissue that holds the bones expands or stretches. That separates the bones. Moving in that direction really begins to create greater ease and fluidness in the body. It allows more movement of blood, more ease of the experience of being in our bodies, of inhabiting our bodies. Can you maintain the connection to that fullness, that stretch of the upper back, and separate the elbows again till they're under the shoulders? You notice it requires a little bit more effort to expand, partly because our bodies are used to maintaining contraction rather than expansion. We become overly identified with a contracted body, a contracted life, a contracted experience. It's one of the limitations of our modern Western empirical, rational perspective is it's very limited. It limits us to what life is, what we are. So we explore through these practices, expanding that limitation, releasing it. As you still press down through the forearms, keep the neck lifted, the broadness in the back, can you now, without moving, push the legs away from each other and just notice all of that engagement? And again, without moving, don't change anything you're doing, but pull your elbows backwards as if you're trying to drag the forearms back toward the legs. And that sense of the belly stretching forwards as the arms pull backwards. You get that length in the belly and the abdomen. Now, if anywhere in the back begins to feel tighter, I encourage you to breathe into that space. We're always looking for balanced action. And quite often, certain places that are used to overworking might engage a little bit too strongly. And we have certain places that are not used to working. And they tend to then be overly kind of identified with contracting, tightening. They go straight there. So we're exploring, feeling, noticing, and adjusting in whatever ways we can. Just a couple more breaths here. Perfect. Okay, we soften, not collapsing, but just softening, and then we'll come up onto the hands again. Place the hands, spread the fingers. Creases in the wrist are in line with the front of the mat. The two hands are like reflections, so we're looking to create a symmetry in the movement that we do with the body, or the way in which we align the body. Bend the elbows a couple of inches to the sides of the space. Grip with the fingers, so you feel the tips of the fingers, but also the base of the fingers pressing down into the floor. And as the hands pull toward each other, can you sustain a level of engagement as you re-straighten the arms, as you press the earth away? And rather than lifting a particular part of the back, I want you to lift the neck. So it's not the head lifting up, it's the neck lifting. Obviously the head will move with the neck, but the attention is with the neck. Front of the throat open, gaze is slightly forward. Breathe into the ribs, let the lower back relax, and that's a sinking in the lower back and belly. Breathe, press the knees away from each other. Notice that feeling in the hips. Can you sustain that feeling in the pelvis without moving the hips? Begin to walk your arms toward the left. Just begin to arc to the left. Now the moment you connect into tightness on that right side between the right hip and the right shoulder, just pause and breathe. Doesn't have to be forced. Yes, part of the experience is meeting our edge, meeting discomfort, meeting resistance. This is the beautiful thing about working with our bodies. Is so often the resistance in our life is kind of covert. It's hidden. We're not always aware of it, and yet our body is so plain in that sense. Its resistance is very upfront. And it just creates pain to tell us about it. And then we have an opportunity to really begin to transform it. In a sense, the body actually is a language that we speak quite well when we realize it. Perfect. Let's come back through center. Lower back relaxed, ribs full. Press the knees apart. Walk the arms in the other direction. So the tightness, you just breathe, you give it time. It's a big part of really beginning to master working with the body, is giving it time. It's as simple as that in many ways. Breathe into the tightness. Perfect. Come back through center. Have a little wobble of the hips, shoulders. Take a deep breath again. Lower back relax. Press the knees apart. One more time. Walk the two arms in the first direction to the left. Some of you will already be noticing that it's a little different on this side. It's kind of like layers, like peeling away. Think of an onion. You peel one skin away and then you get to the next skin and the next skin. Similar practice. Breathe into what you're meeting. Long, deep breaths into the tiredness, the holding, the resistance. Perfect. Let's come back through center. We're nearly there. Push the knees apart. Fill the ribs up. Lift the neck. Second side. Last side. Breathe. Perfect. Let's come back through center again. Okay, let's lift up off the hands so we're on the knees. Okay, let's take the left foot forward. Now you might want to have some sort of support here, either using a wall or you can have a chair beside you or something that just helps you stabilize if you feel like you need that. I'm going to walk my left foot further forward and I'm going to come up onto the heel of the foot. Now, I'm not going to the point where I'm strained through the leg or strained in the hamstring. Very easy to begin. Okay. Looking at that front foot, I curl the toes downward toward the floor without forcing. So just gently working the foot. I'm not going to move my foot, but I'm pushing my left heel down into the floor. You'll feel the leg charge as you do that. And without moving, pull the foot backwards. So you feel that begins to engage the leg. Now, keeping that, if you've got the two hands, you take the two hands to the base of the glutes, base of the buttocks. And if you've got one hand, you do it with one hand. And you sit the bum back, so the hips, the base of the buttocks are moving backwards. Back foot is anchored, it's weighted, you can feel it pressing down into the floor. Stay with this. Stay with this. Breathe, gaze forward. For 5. Breathe into, imagine you could breathe right into the tightest spaces, wherever they are on the leg. Imagine you're breathing right into those spaces. 4. Relax your belly, relax your jaw. 3. 2. And then for 1, very simple. We'll step the front leg back and we'll change sides. Same kind of position with the other leg. Curl the toes toward the floor. Press the heel down. Without moving, you're pulling back, so you're just creating a little bit of resistance in that front leg. And then hand or hands to the base of the glutes, you sit the bum back. Now obviously it's intensifying the work through the front leg, so you go to whatever you can sustain. Bring the gaze forward. You're obviously maintaining that work through the lower part of the body, but the upper part can relax a little. And again, imagining you're breathing right into the tension you're feeling. That's it. Stay with it. Inhaling and exhaling. For 3, 2, and then for 1. Okay, step that front leg back, come back down onto the hands and knees. Walk the knees back an inch or two. So you just open the space between the hands and the knees a little bit more. Let the hips sway, let the lower back relax. When the body is tight, it becomes heavy, almost like dead weight. So when you take a deep breath and you feel the ribs expanding, you might notice the whole thing becomes a little bit more buoyant. We want more of that buoyancy in our lives, not just in terms of our physical experience, but in terms of our mental and emotional experience. The idea of being lighter. In Sanskrit we use a word laghima, lightness of being. And when we're connected to that quality within us, then everything we meet is seen through that lens. You know, that lens of lightness. And particularly at this time when there's so much propensity to be stuck in the heaviness of fear, the heaviness of anxiety. If we could support ourselves in accessing more of this lightness within ourselves. But it takes a little bit of work, and in a sense we need to move through some of the stuckness, the heaviness, and we use our body as a way of doing that. Very simple here. Open the left knee to the left. Left knee and foot open a little to the left. Bring it down. Do the same with the other leg. Right knee to the right. Bring it down. Left leg. Now continue, and as you do that, I want you to let the belly stay relaxed. Lower back stay relaxed. So the work is very much in the hips. Feel into the hands, get the fingers doing more work, and the thumbs gripping. So you're not just in the wrists, in the heel of the hands. Again, we need to learn and notice what's our little habit of kind of dumping in our bodies or dumping in our lives. Where are the ways in which we are tighter, contracted, stuck? How could we work with or remedy them? Release them, move into more lightness, more spaciousness in our experience. A couple more. You notice the hips get tired, you're using parts you're not used to using, and this is a huge part of the practice, is inviting all the different parts that are available to support us to begin to do that job in a way that is balanced, in the way that the relationship of all the different parts becomes more uniformed. Okay, pause. Just take the left leg straight back, horizontal. Bring it back onto the floor. Right leg straight back. Bring it down. Left leg. And down. Right leg. And down. Left leg. Right leg. Left leg. Right leg, left leg, right leg. Keep going. Now, next time the left leg goes back, pause. Take a deep breath into the ribs, little shrug through the shoulders. Throat open, gaze slightly forward. Could you take the right arm forward? So the right arm and left leg are horizontal off the floor. And then bring them both down to the floor. Take the right leg back. Now the fingers in the two hands are working first. That stabilizes. Then take the left arm forward. And then bring them both down to the floor. Perfect. You got it. Breathe. Nice and simple. Great. Okay. So we're going to lift the two hands off the floor again. We're going to step the left foot forward one more time. And I'm going to bring my right hand down to the floor. I'm going to bring my right hand down to the floor. Over to the right a little so I can engage the hand, line up the crease of my wrist or the crease of my elbow with my thumb. And then I'm going to grab my left ankle with my left hand and I'm going to bring my left ankle back to cross it over the back leg. So left foot on the floor, well, the front of the foot on the floor, and the back of that left ankle is connected to the right thigh. Okay? Left knee obviously points a little bit to the left or leans a little to the left as you do that. Left hand on the inside of your left knee. Now before you go anywhere else, I want you to close your eyes, I want you to tune into your hips, and I want you to stick your butt out as if you were trying to create an arch in your lower back. And you'll feel the tightness on that outer left hip, maybe in the left thigh. And just to whatever is available, and then without moving, push your left knee into your left hand. Now breathe into the ribs like it was a balloon that you could fill up. And as you do that, could you lean back a little so that left arm gets a little straighter? Breathe into what you're meeting. Breathe for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we'll soften and we're going to uncross, step that front leg back, come up, right leg forward, left hand comes down, and we'll hold the right ankle, we'll bring it back and cross it so it's connected to the back leg, hand on the inside of the knee. And again, before we go anywhere else, we're trying to move a little in the hips. This is tricky because we're not used to moving the pelvis in these ways, and yet there's all of this possibility in terms of the agility of our hips, but our entire bodies to move in ways that we just kind of lose connection to. So stick the bum out, push the knee into the hand, fill the ribs up, lean back a little if that's available. Wherever the tension is, you're breathing into that space. Breathe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. And we'll release that back. Okay. Lift up into the knees again. Step the left foot forward. 2 legs more or less at a right angle. Okay. Again, if you want to have a support near you, feel free to do that. You could have a chair or the wall. And you could, if you have any of these yoga bricks at home, or you could use a book for support, just to have that close by. You might need it, might not need it. Hands to the base of the glutes again. The base of the buttocks. So it's the top of the hamstring, base of the glutes. Hold the glutes, the hips in this way. So we do this because when we move the hips in this particular way, it begins to bring the hips back into an alignment that they're designed to have more of the time, in which the bones, the joints are working in such a way that we're increasing the flow of blood into these spaces, decalcifying, unblocking, clearing, and it creates not only more elasticity through the pelvis, but more stability. This is what we want. Press the base of the buttocks back, stick it out. Now, as the hips go back a little, you might notice you're leaning forward a little. The tendency for the upper body, the front of the body in particular, is to go faster than everything else. So even as you're doing this, sometimes we will collapse the front body. The gaze stays forward. So the hips are leading the movement. And it's almost like it's the idea that when the pelvis moves back, it's an anchoring, it's a rooting action in the body. Notice the weight in the 2 feet. 2 feet are working, toes in the 2 feet are pressing down. I want to keep the hips there. Take the arms forward so they're pointing down toward the floor, and the left arm is on the inside of your leg, and the arm and leg are pressing into each other. Little bit of resistance there. Fingers are pointing toward the floor, gaze is slightly forward, even if it's just forward along the floor. Notice the length in the belly and the chest, long in that space. You're actively still sticking the bum back as if the hands were back there. Now I want you to keep this. You'll notice the tightness in that left hip area, groin area. Imagine you're breathing into that. If you feel you can lean forward a little bit more, drop a little deeper, but it's not about dropping the head and shoulders. That's a very typical way in which we move
that actually creates disconnection in the body. Ultimately, it creates more suffering and will age our body prematurely. I want us to keep the lift or the length through the sternum and the length through the abdomen. Breathe. Breathe. Just stay with what you're feeling. Inhaling and exhaling. And then we will come on up. So quite often when we're going into, even if we think about this in basic terms, like we're stretching the body, the inclination or the desire is to kind of get further. A lot of this practice is about simply meeting what's there, just kind of, in a sense, just stopping. So you meet some discomfort, some holding in the body, and you just pause and you meet it. You just breathe with it, and it begins to transform it. Quite often we think we need to go further to get more. And it's almost the opposite. Sometimes it's even, we back off a little. There's nowhere to get to. And it's a kind of a, with so much of this stuff, there is that kind of, that paradoxical kind of idea that, yes, we're moving forward, we're doing a practice that is about getting from point A to point B, but at the same time, there's an underlying current which has to do with not going anywhere, with the idea that exactly where we are is perfect. And a lot of in fact, all of the holding in our body will have some software attached to it, some idea attached to it that is about not being enough here. That's what the holding and the resistance in our bodies is all about. It's on some level a lack of I'm okay now, I'm full now, I'm complete now. Some story that we've brought in, something we've taken on, something we've been told around not being good enough, not being full, not being complete. And what that creates in our system, be it our physical, mental or emotional body, is a contraction. It creates holding. So we're going into that through our physical body, through these positions, these poses, and we're giving it time to begin to unravel. Okay, so right angles, hands to the base of the glutes, stick the bum back, press it back. You're trying to feel the two sides filling up, bum back, belly long. Take the hands to point down, right arm on the inside of the front leg, push the arm and leg into each other, stick the butt out. Breathe into the ribs. You might find you can sink relatively easy, but again, notice where you're sinking from. Don't sink from one part. This is what happens so often in our lives, is one part can go further, but then there's other places that are stuck. They can't go further. And it gets us into trouble. It creates an inauthenticity for us. The invitation of our practice is wholeness. It's connecting to the whole experience of ourselves. And for most of us, that's just alien. We just haven't ever really done that. We're not taught about doing that. We don't get taught about that in school. Most of us, our parents have their own stuff. So the idea of beginning to experience the full experience of ourselves. And we do it through these type of practices. And then we're learning to honor ourselves in these ways, to find the places that are hidden, that are locked away, that are stuck, to meet them, to nurture them, to hold them, and to include them in how we move, in how we inhabit our bodies, in how we move through the world. And for most of us, we meet ourselves through a relationship to discomfort. That's a big part of it. Of course, there's the opposite, our relationship with joy, with lightness, but a lot of the time we meet ourselves through discomfort, through suffering, maybe through drama, ways in which our unmet places play out in the world.
A few more breaths here. Just take your time. Just be with what's there. Nice. And then come on up and release the legs back. And just on the knees here, close the eyes, relax the belly. Notice the breath. Relax your jaw. Perfect. Great, okay. We're going to transition onto our backs. Yeah? All the way over onto your back. And when you get there, release the hands to the lower belly, just resting one hand on top of the other. 2 knees are bent. Let's bring the soles of the feet together. Let the 2 knees drop apart. Close the eyes. And notice your breath. Now, if you can, you're breathing through your nose. And we're back to those longer breaths. Inhaling for 5. Exhaling for 5. And really watching the breath, observing it. And as you do that, creating a uniformity, a balance, a fluidness. Stay with the breath, but let the 2 knees come back up and the feet are about hip distance. Just pausing here, but let's stay with this longer breath. Slow, steady, deep. And maybe you'll notice even after the work we've done, being with this breath has become a little bit more easier. A little easier. Stretching one leg out and then stretching the other leg out. Allowing the feet to stay wider than the hips. If the arms are comfortable where they are, feel free to keep them there. But if you'd like to move them away from the body, feel free to do that. Possibly letting the palms turn upward toward the sky. And then could you take 3 deep breaths here, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And each time you take that long exhalation, could you imagine that your body is sinking deeper into the mat? Every part of you melting so the floor gets to hold you. Bring your attention back to your breath. And then begin to take some deeper breaths. And as you do it, let your fingers move and your toes move. Take some deep breaths as you stretch the fingers and arms over your head. And we'll bring the arms back, bend the knees, and let's roll over to the side. When we get comfortable on our side, you can use the hand or arm as a pillow. And when you get to that position, just pause again. Let everything relax as best you can. Let your attention stay gently connected to the breath. And then let's begin to bring ourselves up to sitting. So when you get to the seated position and sit whatever way is comfortable or works for you, close your eyes. And again, we'll bring the attention toward the breath. And as we did at the beginning of our practice, notice how you're doing. Notice whatever else is going on for you, moving through you. You might notice that it's a little easier to stay connected to the breath. That the work we do in some way resets us. And that as we reset, as we come back into balance, we release and let go of what we don't need to be carrying around. So much of what distracts us in our days and our lives, so much of what upsets us or creates anxiety for us through practice we can release, we can let go of. And then we begin to reconnect to our capacity to meet whatever it is that we need to meet in any given moment with more space or more ease or more awareness. That our greater resources become more available to us. So again, can you, as you notice the breath, can you begin to take some deeper breaths? Again, those slow, deep breaths through the nose if possible. Inhaling for 5. Exhaling for 5. If 5 is too much, again, please feel free to use a smaller number. And just stay gently aware of your breath. Let's bring the hands together in front of the heart. So the idea is that we're bringing all these different parts of ourselves back together in a way that is balanced or synchronized. That so often we're simply out of balance, that we're just pulled in different directions, that we've learned to overwork certain parts and underwork or disconnect from other places, that we create an environment of protection within us. We're locking places away within ourselves. And the result for many of us is that we feel overwhelmed, anxious, fearful, distressed, depressed. We ask that our practice allow us to unlock these places, to invite more of ourselves back home, that we come to a place of greater balance, greater ease within ourselves. And that begins to inform our view, our perspective of our own lives, of each other's lives, and of this world that we're living in. To seal our practice, we ask that we be free from suffering. So maybe if you feel like it, you can say this after me. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I know joy and the causes of joy. And then maybe could you think of somebody in your life who you'd like to offer this to? And you can put their name into this. May my friend, may this person be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they know joy and the causes of joy. And then if you feel like this is a possibility, if you feel like you can say this, may all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be free from the causes of suffering. May all beings know joy. May all beings know the causes of joy. I'm going to take our hands to the forehead and to our lips, and then back to the heart. And then to ourselves and to each other, we bow. Namaste. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the practice, and it'll be available to do again if you wish. Just to take these moments is so important with everything that's going on in our lives and in the world. This idea of resetting ourselves, of letting go of what we don't need to be carrying around. So I hope you have a good day, and if you want to do any more work with me, there's a few things coming up that are, there's information on my website, michaelryanyoga.com. You can also sign up for my email, which is coming out next week, and that'll have information about upcoming events and meditation coming up next month, and we're hoping to do some actual gatherings, but it'll be January at this point. And if you want to pay for classes or donate, you can also do that on my website. So thank you very much. Take care.